Good afternoon again, fellow persons and subscribers to the Elijah Message channel. Now, this is a channel in which we diffuse truth in terms of prophetic events, particularly outlined in the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation in light of what is happening in current events. Now, recently we are hearing the Pope was inaugurated, that Pope Leo the 14th, and we had many presidents and prime ministers who went to his coronation ceremony, including the vice president of and his wife of the United States of America, in which J.D. Vance, invited the reigning Pope, Pope Leo the 14th, to address a joint session of Congress. Now, we know that in 2015, that Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope, did address a joint session of Congress because he was invited by both speakers of the House on the Republican and Democratic side who were Catholic at the time. We also have at this moment vice president who is Catholic, who was converted to the Roman Catholic faith. That's J.D. Vance in 2019 and is said to be a devout Catholic. Now, he's inviting on a second occasion the Pope, which represents or who represents the head of the most powerful religious body in the world. Now, remember now that we spoke before that the Roman Catholic papacy, the Pope, who is the head of that institution, is a religious political institution. So it's both religious as well as political, which it means, therefore, that the church and state must be merged together. It does not believe in the separation of church and state as Protestant or Protestant America suggested that there should be, or that should be practiced in North America. We have already established that the United States of America is fast moving into a post-Protestant nation and is becoming rapidly a Catholic nation. And if you read the newspapers from even George W. Bush's time, his speech writers, many of the lawyers, the Supreme Court, 6 of the reigning judges are Catholics. 6 of the reigning judges on the U.S. Supreme Court are Catholic. So the Catholic Church has ensured that in order to conquer Protestant America, they would have to position themselves at very key offices, very high and prestigious offices in the United States, positions that will be able to move along to push their agenda rapidly and compellingly. And we can see that that is happening every day in the United States of America. And we now know that the current Pope of Rome is a citizen of the United States of America. So he was born there, he was raised there, educated there. So he is, in fact, a US citizen. Now, if you read the book, The Vatican in World Politics by Abro Manhattan, those plans were already in the making, even post-World War II. I would say he's arguing from World War I that the Vatican has been working to overthrow the United States. But we know that even before that, from ever since the United States was founded as a nation, as a Protestant nation, that most of the popes, all the popes have been saying that she is a heretic and that they seek to override and undermine the United States as a nation. Now, remember now that the Roman Catholic papacy did not find it very easy to do that. So what it did, it decided that it would go there by sending a lot of its adherents, that those people coming from Ireland, the Irish, sending a lot of Italians there in the late 19th century into the early 20th century. And we can see now at the latter stages of the 20th century, it's sending a lot of its parishioners, its adherents from Latin America to the United States to Catholicize that nation as we speak. Now, the United States has always been opposed well, for a huge chunk of its history to Catholicism. And therefore, they were, even to some regard, paranoid at having any Catholic leader, because they understand that when you have a Catholic leader, that the first person to whom that person is loyal is to the Pope of Rome. So whether they be John F. Kennedy or Joseph Biden or Trump himself, who is Jesuit trained at, you know, Fordham University. Now, when you read the book, and I would encourage all of you to get a copy of The Vatican in World Politics, in light, especially those of you who have read The Great Controversy. If you read the chapters on the Vatican's connection to Hitler's ascension to power, the Vatican's connection to Mussolini in Italy and his ascent to power, also the Vatican's role in what instigating this huge hatred towards atheistic Russia and the Soviet Union. I never thought that the Vatican played such a role, a very prominent role, a pivotal role in ensuring, in inducing hatred among the Western allies toward atheistic Russia. And the main reason for which he did that, according to Avram Manhattan, and his book is properly documented, and you can also do further research, is because of the Roman Catholics' hatred towards the Orthodox Church, the Orthodox Church in Russia, because the Orthodox Church in Russia had a very commanding presence. And wherever the Roman Catholic Church enters, whatever territory they're on, they want to dominate. No, not that Russia didn't want the Catholic faith there, but they were suggesting that, after 1917 and the Russian Revolution, that they would have religions of all, of all colors in their country. So they had Protestants, they had Catholics, they had, of course, members of the Orthodox faith and other religions. And if you want to be an atheist, but the Vatican wanted to convert the Russian people to Roman Catholicism. And for that reason, even though, based on what Avram Manhattan is saying, I'm not sure if that is 100% true, but based on what he has documented, is that, Roosevelt, FDR, he worked with he negotiated many times with Stalin and the Pope, where Stalin was trying to seek peace with the Pope. But because they were opening up Russia and the Soviet Union to having religious freedom, the Vatican would not allow it. The Vatican wanted to reign supreme, wanted absolute control over Russian territory and Europe as a continent on the whole. So now we're seeing where the Vatican is making now its strident approach and seeking to overcome, as it were, the United States of America. And as Avram Manhattan says, and many writers have suggested before, including Ellen White in her Great Controversy, she suggested that the Roman Catholic papacy often plans centuries ahead. They don't plan decades or weeks in advance. They plan centuries ahead of what their tactics. So they set up institutions, they set up people, and at the right moment, they are going to launch their attack. They're almost like a ravenous lion, which seeks its prey. Prey is unaware of what it's doing, but it's drawing closer to it. And the closer, as it gets closer to the prey, then it launches its attack and grips it and kills it. So this is what the United States, the Vatican is now about to do to the United States of America, a former Protestant nation, a nation which hated popery when it was founded. And for a long time, even in the mid to later parts of the 20th century, still hated them, Roman Catholic papacy. And that is why, not RFK, but John F. Kennedy had a very difficult time. He had to convince Americans that he's not there. He was not going to do the biddings of popery, but he was going to do the bidding. He was more loyal to the Constitution of the United States. But his trying to be loyal to the United States Constitution and not doing what the Vatican wanted him to do, it caused him his death, right? The many sources have suggested that the Vatican, along with the CIA, many people think that the CIA is controlled by the Vatican. Some people call it the Catholic Intelligence Agency, right? Whether that is so or not, that's not the purpose of this morning's or this afternoon's discussion. Now, Ellen White wrote in the Great Controversy, on in the chapter 38, the final warning. She says here, the scripture points forward to a time when the announcement of the fall of Babylon, as made by the second angel of Revelation 14, is to be repeated with additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the various organizations that constitute Babylon, since that message was first given in the summer of 1844. Right? Now, fearful is the issue to which the world is to be brought. The powers of earth, uniting to war against the commandments of God, will decree that all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, shall conform to the customs of the church. And by the church, it means the Roman Catholic Church, by the observance of the false Sabbath. All who refuse compliance will be visited with civil penalties and will finally be declared that they are serving, or they are deserving rather, of death. On the other hand, the law of God enjoining the Creator's rest day demands obedience and threatens wrath against all who transgress its precepts. Now, if you read the Vatican in world politics, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and for us to see, to show you, right, for you to see how the Vatican had been laying its seeds and getting the ground, the soil prepared for the entire Catholic takeover of the United States. The agenda was there, hashed decades ago, perhaps centuries. All right, so let me share my screen with you. And you need to go and get a copy of that text and read it cover to cover and be reflective of what you read. In America, and this was the chapter on, on the US, the Vatican and the United States. In America, before the outbreak of the Second World War, the Catholic Church, having the same aims as in Europe, thought itself strong enough to raise its head a little and hesitantly show what it really wanted. The ultimate aims of the Catholic Church in America are very clearly set out in an official book, stamped with the entire approval of the Pope. And I want to read this book. I haven't read it yet. Studied as a text in Catholic universities and written by the head of the Social Action Department of the National Catholic Welfare Conference, which that's a very dangerous organization, because that conference that is setting the stage for the Catholic takeover of the United States. It explicitly states that as there exists only one true religion, Catholicism. Remember now that the Catholic Church suggests that it is the only true Christian faith. The Catholic Church must establish itself as the state church in the United States of America. That is the ultimate agenda, that the Catholic Church establishes itself as the state church in the United States of America. This is the ultimate agenda. This is in accordance with the fundamental doctrine of the popes that the state must not only have the care for religion, but must recognize the true religion. And she's suggesting here, and this was written by Leo XIII, and this Pope, Leo XIV, is not predecessor, not the one that followed him, but the one that took his name. This is the 14th. He was the 13th, and Pope Leo is now the 14th. That is Cardinal Prevost, right? So the fact is that is what the Roman Catholic Church is going to do, to create a state church, so you won't have the separation of the state and religion anymore. In short, Catholicism must be made to prevail and eventually eliminate all other religions. Wherever the Catholic Church is, it does not desire that any other religion, be they Protestant Christian faith or Muslim or Hindu, they do not want any other religion within their scope, within their domain. They want to run the show entirely. This has as its authority the encyclical written by Pope Leo XIII called Catholicity, Catholicity rather, in the United States, in which the American separation of church and state is condemned. So in another lecture, I am going to look at that encyclical by Pope Leo XIII titled Catholicity in the United States. So if that Pope was already saying that, and this Pope reigned from 1878 to 1903, so as we suggest, they planned centuries ahead, not just decades. What then should happen to American principles of liberty of conscience, of the individual, of religion, of opinion, and all those other aspects of freedom that are now an integral part of the American life? And this book was written in the 1950s when that was practiced in America. Now we can see that there are not any democratic practices in terms of your opinion. We're now moving towards suppression of opinions, towards censorship. And to take a particular sphere of society, the religious, what would happen if Catholicism assumed power? Since all religions, with the exception of Catholicism, are false. This is the premise of the Catholic Church, that all religions, with the exception of Catholicism, with the exception of the Catholic faith, are false. They cannot be allowed to pervert those who are in the fold of the Catholic Church. So once the Catholic Church has gained footing in the United States, which it is gaining or has already gained, particularly in the politics, then it's going to take over and become a religio-political power. Hence, all other religious denominations in the United States of America might be allowed to profess their faith and to worship only if such worship is carried out within the family circle or in such inconspicuous manner as to be an occasion neither for scandal nor of perversion to the faithful. Thus, a Catholic America or a Catholic United States of America would limit and eventually even forbid the practice of religious freedom, which automatically takes the church into the cultural, social, and finally political fields. This is based on the Catholic doctrine that since no rational end is promoted by the dissemination of false doctrine, there exists no right to indulge in this practice. Why? Simply because the Pope states, and the leader of the American Catholics declares, that error has not the same rights as truth. Right? So this is where we're moving into, in which the Catholic Church seeks to take over, seeks to Catholicize the United States of America. When it does so, as Avram Manhattan is suggesting, all religions opposing the Catholic doctrines and dogmas will be assailed and will be prohibited, will be suppressed. And we know the reign of terror that happened in the Dark Ages, during the Dark Ages. But oftentimes when I speak, oftentimes when other people speak and they elucidate on Roman Catholicism and its persecutory power during the time of the Dark Ages, we forget that in the 20th century, in Italy's, Mussolini's Italy rather, and Hitler's Germany, that the Catholic Church had a concordat with these two rebels, with these two dictators, with these two or those two tyrants. The Catholic Church enabled them because that is the standard, that is the blueprint of fascism that the church wants to also apply in the United States of America. So it's time for us now to understand that Pope Leo XIV, an American pope, means business. We can see where Pope Leo XIII already is condemning freedom of expression, or he condemned it during his reign. Let us see, now that the United States is much weakened and has Catholicism over its neck, as it were, over its political neck, and its legal neck also, it's legal, because if of six of the reigning judges, 6 of the 9 judges that are part of the Supreme Court are Catholics, can you imagine where we are heading? So I hope that you are following what is happening. Will Pope Leo the 14th Catholicize the United States of America? That's the question.